to the branches.
So it's like the foundation of our existence.
Yeah.
Without it, I mean, we wouldn't even be here to appreciate all of Allah's blessings. I'm really struck by how each part is so vital and so interconnected.
They really are, yeah. And it gets even more intricate when you look at the cerebrum.
Oh.
It's divided into 4 lobes, each specializing in different functions.
Oh, wow.
We have the frontal lobe, the parietal lobe, the temporal lobe, and the occipital lobe.
I was reading about these, and I found it so fascinating. The frontal lobe, that seems to be where our personalities come from, right?
Yeah, that's one way to think about it. The frontal lobe is involved in planning, decision-making, problem-solving, and even our sense of self. It's what allows us to make choices that align with our Islamic values.
So if I'm trying to decide between, let's say, watching a lecture on Islamic history versus scrolling through social media, is that my frontal lobe kind of weighing the options?
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
That's amazing. And the parietal lobe, which is located towards the back of the head, helps us understand our spatial awareness. It processes information about touch, temperature, and pain. It allows us to interact with the world around us.
So when I feel the warmth of the sun on my skin or the coolness of the water when I'm making wudu,
Yeah.
is that the parietal lobe at work?
That is the parietal lobe, exactly.
All
And
right.
then we have the temporal lobe situated on the sides of our head. And that's crucial for processing language and forming memories.
So when I'm listening to a recitation of the Quran or remembering a hadith,
Yeah.
is that my temporal lobe helping me understand and retain that information?
That is exactly what's happening.
That's amazing.
And finally, the occipital lobe at the very back of the brain is responsible for processing visual information. It's what allows us to appreciate the beauty of Allah's creation, from the vastness of the night sky to the intricate details of a flower.
Subhanallah. It really is. It's truly a miracle. And it's not just these, main players. There are other parts of the brain that contribute to this symphony of functions.
There are.
Right.
You're right. We have the thalamus, which acts like a central relay station, routing sensory information to the correct parts of the brain. Imagine it as a busy airport directing incoming flights to their designated gates.
That's a great analogy. What about the hypothalamus? What does that do?
The hypothalamus is all about balance and regulation. It keeps our internal environment stable by controlling things like body temperature, hunger, thirst, and sleep cycles. It's also involved in our emotional responses.
So when we feel tired after a long day of fasting, or our heart races when we're giving a presentation, that's the hypothalamus kind of doing its job.
That is the hypothalamus.
Wow.
It's constantly working to keep our bodies and minds in a state of equilibrium. And we can't forget about the amygdala and the hippocampus, both crucial for our emotional and memory experiences.
Well, I was reading about those. The amygdala seems to be linked to strong emotions, especially fear, right?
It is. It helps us respond to threats and process memories related to those threats. Think of it as our internal alarm system. It alerts us to danger.
Subhanallah. It's amazing how Allah has, designed our brains to protect us. What about the hippocampus? What's its role?
So the hippocampus is essential for forming new memories, especially those related to facts and events.
Okay.
Imagine it as a library where our experiences are carefully cataloged and stored for future retrieval.
So every time I learn something new about Islam, my hippocampus is helping me, store that knowledge.
It is, exactly.
Wow. And lastly, the pituitary gland.
Yes, the pituitary gland.
It might be small, but it's incredibly powerful.
It is.
They often call it the master gland.
Right.
Because it releases hormones that control, just so many bodily functions.
Yes, it does.
From growth and development to metabolism and even reproduction.
That's right.
Subhanallah. It's incredible to think about all these different parts, working together in perfect harmony.
It really is.
It's like an orchestra, playing this beautiful symphony.
Yeah.
Conducted by the wisdom of Allah. But what about the musicians themselves? I'm curious about those tiny messengers that you mentioned earlier, the neurons.
Ah, yes, the neurons. Those are the true stars of the show. They're the ones responsible for transmitting information throughout the brain and the rest of the body. And there are billions of them.
Wow.
All interconnected in a complex network that's constantly buzzing with activity.
So in this symphony, if the brain regions are like the different instruments, then the neurons are like the individual notes that create the music.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
Each neuron is like a tiny messenger carrying information from one part of the brain to another, or from the brain to the body and back again.
That's so fascinating. It really makes you appreciate the complexity and the power of Allah's creation. I'm eager to learn more about these incredible neurons and how they communicate.
Me too. There's so much more to explore.
So we've been talking about the amazing structure of the brain,
Yeah.
all its different parts, but now I'm really curious about those tiny messengers you mentioned, the neurons. How do they actually communicate with each other?
It's a fascinating process. Imagine each neuron as a tree
Okay.
with branches reaching out to connect with other trees in a vast forest. These branches, called axons and dendrites, they form a complex network of connections, allowing information to flow throughout the brain.
Okay. I can picture that. So are the messages, are they traveling through these branches like sap flowing through a tree?
Not quite. The messages travel as electrical and chemical signals.
Okay. Think of it like this. An electrical impulse, like a tiny spark, travels down the axon, which is like the main trunk of the neuron.
So each neuron is like its own little electrical circuit.
You could say that.
What happens when that spark reaches the end of the axon? Does it jump to the next neuron?
Not directly. There's a tiny gap between the axon of one neuron and the dendrite of the next neuron. This gap is called a synapse.
A synapse. So it's like a bridge that needs to be crossed for the message to continue its journey.
That's a great way to put it. When the electrical impulse reaches the end of the axon, it triggers the release of special chemicals called neurotransmitters.
Neurotransmitters. I feel like I've heard that word before. Are those like the chemical messengers that carry signals between different parts of the body?
Exactly. These neurotransmitters are released into the synapse and they bind to receptors on the dendrite of the next neuron. Think of them as keys fitting into specific locks. So the electrical signal triggers the release of these chemical keys, which then unlock the next neuron, allowing the message to continue.
Precisely. And it's not just a one-way street.
Oh.
The receiving neuron can then send signals back to the original neuron, creating this dynamic feedback loop.
Subhanallah. It's amazing how intricate this communication system is. It's like a bustling city with messages constantly flowing back and forth.
It really is. And the types of messages being sent are incredibly diverse. Some neurotransmitters are excitatory, meaning they encourage the next neuron to fire, while others are inhibitory, meaning they suppress the firing of the next neuron.
So it's like a delicate balance between signals that say go and signals that say stop.
Exactly. This balance is essential for regulating all sorts of brain functions, from our mood and emotions to our ability to learn and remember.
This brings to mind something I was reading about, neuroplasticity.
Yes, neuroplasticity.
I was so fascinated by the idea that our brains are constantly changing and adapting throughout our lives.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. How does that work? How does that relate to what we're talking about with neurons?
So neuroplasticity is all about the brain's ability to form new connections between neurons and even strengthen existing connections. It's what allows us to learn new things, adapt to new environments, and even recover from brain injuries.
So if we learn a new surah from the Quran or develop a new habit like giving more charity, is it because our brains are physically changing, forming new connections between those neurons?
Exactly. Every experience we have, every thought we think, every action we take, it shapes our brains at a microscopic level.
Wow.
It's a testament to the incredible power that Allah has given us to learn and grow throughout our lives.
That's truly humbling, and it makes me think about the importance of feeding our brains, with the right kind of information, with knowledge that will benefit us in this life and the next.
I agree. The choices we make, the things we expose ourselves to, all leave their mark on our brains. By seeking beneficial knowledge, engaging in acts of worship, and surrounding ourselves with positive influences, we can strengthen those neural pathways that lead to goodness.
Subhanallah. That's a powerful thought. It's like we're gardening our own minds.
Yes.
Cultivating those thoughts and habits that will bring us closer closer to Allah. Speaking of things we cultivate in our minds, what about memories? How are those formed and stored in this incredible network of neurons?
So memory is a fascinating and complex process. It involves multiple stages and different brain regions working together. But at its core, memory is about strengthening the connections between neurons.
So every time we recall a memory, those connections become even stronger.
You can think of it that way. The more we access a particular memory, the more ingrained it becomes in our neural networks.
That makes me think about the importance of reflecting on our blessings, remembering the favors that Allah has bestowed upon us.
Yes.
By actively remembering those blessings, we strengthen those connections in our brains and foster a sense of gratitude.
That's a beautiful way to apply this knowledge.
Yeah.
And it's not just about remembering happy memories.
Oh.
Reflecting on challenging times, lessons learned, and even our own mistakes can also strengthen our neural pathways and help us grow as individuals.
So our brains are like this living record of our experiences constantly being shaped by the choices we make and the things that we remember.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a powerful reminder of our responsibility to use this gift wisely.
Indeed. Our brains are an amana, a trust from Allah. We should strive to use them in ways that please Him, seeking knowledge that benefits us and others, and engaging in actions that draw us closer to Him.
This has been so enlightening. I'm truly awestruck by the complexity and wonder of the human brain. What else can you tell us about this incredible creation?
There's so much more to explore. We haven't even touched on the brain's role in language, creativity, or even spirituality. Let's delve into those next.
It's really amazing. You know, we've been on this fascinating journey exploring the human brain, and it's just incredible to think about, you know, how much is happening inside our heads without us even realizing it.
Right. Yeah. It really is mind-boggling when you stop and think about it. We've talked about the intricate structure of the brain, that remarkable communication network of neurons, and the amazing ability of the brain to, to change and adapt throughout our lives.
Yeah, and we even touched on, you know, how all this relates to our Islamic values and our relationship with Allah, but there's still so much more I want to understand, like language, for example. How is it that we're able to communicate these complex ideas, you know, to each other?
Well, think about, the last time that you listened to a khutbah or you recited a beautiful passage from the Quran.
Okay.
You were able to, understand the words, process the meaning, and maybe even feel an emotional connection to the message.
Right.
All of that is happening because of specific areas in your brain that are dedicated to processing language.
So there are actual parts of the brain that are specifically designed for language.
There are.
That's incredible.
Yeah, there are regions in the brain primarily located in the left hemisphere that are responsible for different aspects of language, like, understanding spoken words, forming coherent sentences, and even recognizing the emotional tone of someone's speech.
It's like a whole other world within our brains that's dedicated to communication.
It is.
And it's not, I mean, it's not just, spoken language, right?
Yeah.
We also read and write, which requires another set of skills.
It does, yeah. Reading and writing involve this really complex interplay between, visual processing, language comprehension, and fine motor skills. I mean, when you think about it, the ability to translate symbols on a page into meaningful ideas,
Right.
and then express our own thoughts in written form, it's really a remarkable feat.
It truly is. And it makes me think about the importance of using this gift of language for good.
Yeah.
For spreading knowledge that benefits others, for engaging in meaningful conversations, and for making dhikr and dua to Allah.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Language is a powerful tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or for ill.
Right.
We should strive to use our words in a way that pleases Allah and benefits humanity.
Speaking of, using our brains for good, what about creativity? I mean, where does that come from? I mean, is there a specific part of the brain that's responsible for those aha moments?
Creativity is a bit more elusive than that. It's not localized to one specific region of the brain. It's more about the connections between different brain areas, the ability to, see patterns, make associations, and think outside the box.
So it's like different parts of the brain working together to create something new and innovative.
Exactly. And it's not, it's not just limited to artistic expression. We use creativity in everyday life, whether we're solving a problem at work, coming up with a new recipe, or even finding a creative way to teach our children about Islam.
It's amazing to think about the potential that we all have,
Yeah.
to be creative. And it makes me wonder, are there things we can do to enhance our creativity?
There are, yeah. Engaging in activities that challenge our brains, like, learning a new skill, traveling to new places, or even just having conversations with people who have different perspectives. All of that can help stimulate creativity.
That's inspiring. It makes me want to go out and try something new.
Yeah.
Stretch my brain and see what I can come up with.
I encourage you to do so. And remember, creativity is not just about, producing something tangible.
Yeah.
It's also about cultivating a mindset of curiosity, openness, and a willingness to explore new possibilities.
This has been such a thought-provoking discussion. We've learned so much about the intricacies of the brain. It's a remarkable capabilities and the responsibility that we have to use this gift wisely. But before we wrap up, I wanted to touch on one more topic that's close to my heart, and that's brain health.
Yeah. Brain health is an important topic. We often focus on taking care of our physical bodies, but
Yeah.
our brains need just as much attention.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what are some things that we can do to nurture our brains and keep them healthy, inshallah?
Yeah, many of the things that are good for our physical health are also good for our brains. A healthy diet rich in fruits, vegetables, and healthy fats is essential.
So eating those dates and drinking that Zamzam water during Ramadan is not just nourishing our bodies, but also our brains.
Precisely. And regular exercise is not only good for our hearts and muscles, but it also increases blood flow to the brain, which delivers oxygen and nutrients.
I've definitely felt the effects of not getting enough sleep. My thinking isn't as clear, and my mood definitely suffers.
Yeah, sleep is crucial for brain health. It allows our brains to rest and recharge, to consolidate memories, and to clear out toxins.
So those nights that we spend in prayer during Ramadan are not only spiritually beneficial, but also good for our brains.
They are, exactly. And just like we need to protect our bodies from harm, we need to protect our brains as well. That means, managing stress, avoiding harmful substances, and being mindful of the information that we consume.
That's a good reminder.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get caught up in the constant stream of news and social media.
It is.
But we need to be selective about what we expose our minds to.
Absolutely. By feeding our brains with beneficial knowledge, engaging in positive activities, and taking care of our overall well-being, we can nurture these incredible gifts that Allah has bestowed upon us.
Subhanallah, what a powerful thought to end on. I feel so grateful for the opportunity to have explored this topic with you. It's truly humbling to contemplate the intricate workings of the human brain and to recognize Allah's infinite wisdom in its design.
Ameen to that. May Allah grant us the ability to use our brains to their fullest potential, both in this life and the next.
Jazakallah khair for joining us on this deep dive. May Allah guide us all to greater understanding and wisdom. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.